Thank you for joining us back to continue with the next session in the conference. My apologies, I just missed out. One more session was there before the break. We have here Honorable Mr. Bob Cohen, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, online with us, and he will be joining us for a session on the Zoom, and he'll be inaugurating all the sessions that would be happening through the conference. He's Executive Director, Bhaktivedanta Institute, Florida. Mr. Bob Cohen is BS in Chemistry from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Sorry if I did not pronounce it rightly. And MS in Geology from Rutgers University. Post 20 years career as geologist, he became VP of large regional environmental company. Currently, he also works as the environmental consultant to state governments. He's member of BIHS since its inception in 1976, and he rejuvenated actually the consciousness. So here is the connector of the previous presentation to the next presentation. He rejuvenated consciousness in science in 1977 presentation at Life Comes from Life conference. He's working on multitude of projects with R.L. Thompson, Sada Prabhu from 1995 through 2008. So we request Brahmatirtha Prabhu to inaugurate the next sessions.
I wish I could have been there. I even had a ticket to be there in person, but as we say, life happens, and due to some circumstances, I couldn't come. But I'm going to be listening intently. I give my congratulations to Prem Guranga this very important conference. Now, I have a hard act to follow. I have to speak after Lakshmi Darbahira, who is an amazing
Recording in
person.
progress.
The work he does is very significant. The boldness he takes to introducing consciousness into science is simply wonderful. And he's somebody you should all be extremely proud of. And for the rest of the day, you have many interesting and exciting speakers coming. I'm sure that this will be a conference. When you go home, you won't say, the only thing that you'll remember is how good the snacks were. We hope that this is a conference that when you go home with something to think about and enjoyed the snacks. I'm going to give a little PowerPoint very briefly, just about who the Bhaktivedanta Institute is. And I will screen share and show you that now. So the Bhaktivedanta Institute, I'm going to begin with my own story. I was a high school teacher in Bihar, India. I was teaching in what's now Jharkhand state, but in the town of Chaibasa, which isn't far from Jamshedpur, and I was a high school science teacher. I came to India to try to understand the inner meaning of the Gita. And I was in my young 20s. The only people who came to India in their young 20s were the hippies. It was rare to find an educated young person coming to India. But I ran into some of the followers of Srila Prabhupada, and they invited me to Mayapur. Mayapur, many of you have been there, you know it's a city now, but then it was just a rice paddy in the picture you see the hut there, that was all that was there, and some tents. And while I was there, I got to meet Prabhupada, and we sat and talked for 3 days, and then Prabhupada named our conversation, perfect questions, perfect answers. The very first question I asked Prabhupada in the book, what is a scientist? Because I was a science teacher, and I was to understand what my real purpose is in what I'm doing. So I'd ask him, what is a scientist really? And Prabhupada answered in such an insightful manner, a very simple answer. One who knows things as they are. Things as they are. I didn't realize until later how profound that is. And so I eventually became his disciple and joined the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Prabhupada had established it in 1976. And we held our first science conference called Life Comes from Life, which nowadays would be called Consciousness Studies. And we held that in the sacred place of Vrindavan, in the courtyard of the Krishna Balaram temple. And there were 5 of us there. And you have to guess which one is me. This is called the changing body. Okay, I'm in the middle. And then at this conference, there were 5 of us speaking, and we had some very prominent scientists come, some from America, some from India, and we debated, does life come from life, or can you just generate life? Is life just a totally physicalist process? It was a good conference. Prabhupada couldn't attend because it was a month before he passed on, but every day he'd call us in his room for a. Then we fast forward in 1990, we did one of the first conferences in the world on what is consciousness within science. And this was run by our dear Swarup Damodar. And you can't see the names here, but we had Nobel laureates and quite prominent speakers. Dr. Sudarshan was there, and also in the 1977 conference. Then we move on. We've done other conferences in between. The biggest one we had was in 2019, Consciousness and Science, which was held where I am in Gainesville, Florida, by the University of Florida. We had 450 guests come for the opening night, and we had very prominent speakers, including Stuart Hameroff, who runs the largest conference in the world on science and consciousness. It fast for 2 days. Going ahead, you saw in 1977, there were 5 followers of Prabhupada were able to organize the conference in Vrindavan. In 2019, we had 50 of us, and most here have PhDs. Going on, the mission of the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. We're trying to look at the world, is it mechanistic or non-mechanistic? We'll get to that in a little bit. Exploring the hard problem of physics, as David Chalmers says, which is consciousness. And then we combine laboratory experiments with metaphysics. The Pear Lab, for those who are familiar, was done at Princeton University, exploring how mind could interact with machine. And then we use to allow us to better understand the metaphysical principles, and we want to contribute to a non-mechanistic view of matter and consciousness. That's who we are. Our branch in Bombay is sponsoring this conference. Recently in Gainesville, this is known as the Tigert House. It used President Tigert was the president of the University of Florida in the late 40s. And this was his mansion, and it was recently donated to. I have an extensive library, guest facilities, research offices, and such. President Tigert has an interesting connection to India because after he retired as president of the university, Nehru personally recruited him to come to India and revive the higher education system because the British basically ran it. And somebody who had great experience in organizing higher education needed to come in and help. So President Tigert moved to India and revived its education system. Our main projects involve two areas. In the future, other ecology and environmental studies and sustainability will be included. But right now, the two main areas in which the majority of our dozens of PhDs work on are cosmology, which is the conference we're all at together, and the interface consciousness studies. And that is one of our most active groups run out of Caltech. Kunal Muli, who runs that group, will be one of your speakers on Sunday. Don't miss his talk. Please don't. Now, here, I thought I had the answer to the meaning of life, but everything canceled out. And the idea is that in order to understand life, we need to walk on two legs, not be hopping. One leg is physics and science, and the other is metaphysics. In tradition, it's always been that way, philosophy and science combined. It's become bifurcated, and we're trying to pull it back together again. That's the essence of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. There's some quotes here from folks you all know. I love the one from Einstein. As far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain. And as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. Bertrand Russell, physics is mathematical, not because we know so much about little. It is only its mathematical properties that we can discover. And Eugene Wigner, the Nobel laureate, it is necessary to develop a new tool to understand consciousness. This describes what some of the mission of the BI is. The Bhagavad Gita 10:8 would summarize our core value. I'm the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. So this is the core principle that we need to understand the relationship with the Supreme. And we're using all the tools of modern science. We're not, Prabhupada's very first book, curiously, was published it in the 50s in India, was Easy Journey to Other Planets. As a scientist, he appreciated all that they were doing. They just shot, the Russians had just put Sputnik in orbit, and Prabhupada was appreciating the intelligence and the insight that the scientists had. But he said there was a pinprick, and what was missing, the philosophy, understanding what the source of all this is. For example, one of the areas we study is evolutionary theory. But evolutionary theory has given us great insights into even how to breed animals and how DNA works and all of this. But it's missing the point of how do you go from very low quantities of information to high quantities of information. As we move up the evolution scale, there's more information. There has to be some conscious input. When we look at a painting, we're looking at a painting, it might be a painting of Krishna and Vrindavan, the Mona Lisa, but every time we look at a painting, as a scientist, we may ask, did they use titanium dioxide for the white? Was that carbon black for the black paint? Where do they get the purple from? We may look at it, but we're missing the essence of the painting. But when we look at the painting and appreciate the creator of the painting, this was created by Van Gogh and Da Vinci or whoever might have created. This is a B.J. Sharma painting. When we look at the painting and think of the author, we're seeing the whole picture, not just a piece of it. So our goal of the Institute is to look holistically. The goal of this conference, which I'm so honored to be able to give an introductory talk, the goal of the conference is to look at cosmology more holistically. There are great insights from modern science. Now we have the Hubble and the Webb telescope, and there are great insights from the Jyotir Shastras and the Purāṇic knowledge for a better view of the world, which benefits everyone. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks. All good success at the conference. I hope you learn well, and I hope you eat well. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bob Cohen. Thank you for placing the conference to be meaningful in its purpose and sharing goal of the conference as going deeper to the levels of understanding of cosmology. Your story is very interesting and journey is exemplar of the very objectives of our international conference here. You have very well comprehensively shared the wide subjects covered through the conferences and projects at BIHS. I'm sure the audience will be amazed to see at the before and after picture of Mayapur temple. I have it in my slide for tomorrow or day after. With an artistic cartoon presentation, you made such a deep point that we need two legs, one science and another being metaphysics. Thank you with supportive examples of theory of evolution and painting.